Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, summer 2024, how was it? Okay, well, it was quite different from last year, particularly when it came to the overall narrative. Because you see, last year, it was the definition of a roller coaster, because you started out with Guardians 3, and then things started to fall off with Fast X and Little Mermaid. The things hit a high again with Across the Spider Verse. And then things fell off hard with Transformers Rise of the Beast, The Flash, Elemental, although that ultimately recovered, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. It was tragic. Then things got kind of better with Sound of Freedom, but then Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning flopped. Then things reached an ultimate high with Barbenheimer, one of the biggest weekends in the history of movies. And then things fell off again after that. But this year, things started out on a real low note in May. May was downright terrible. But then after that, once June hit, things hit a high pretty much all the way until late August. So that was interesting to look at. And for the third year in a row, something insane happened that I could have never predicted months in advance. Definitely not a year in advance. Because in 2022, Top Gun Maverick. 2023, Barbie. 2024, it happened to be Inside Out 2. Everyone thought Deadpool and Wolverine would be number one, me included. I thought for sure that would be it. And Inside Out 2, I thought would just do okay. But it ended up being the highest grossing animated movie of all time, domestically and worldwide. So, yeah, that was something to witness. But yeah, this is going to be a two-part recap, not three-part like last year. Just a two-parter. This video you're watching right now is about the winners, the positives, and all that. The next video, part two, will be the losers, all the fails, the flops, the disappointments. So that's how we're gonna do it. So let's begin. Starting with May. Again, the low note. We're not gonna be talking about May for a whole lot. You'll quickly understand why. But let's go over like the minor positives because Tarot did it didn't do good, but considering its low budget of 8 million, I mean 49 million, that's not too bad. But so no one even remembers this movie. It got like really terrible reviews, but people watched it for some reason. And yeah, that's basically its whole legacy. It came out, it made a couple dollars, and then it disappeared. So yeah, moving on to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Okay, our first real positive. So, this movie, I wasn't sure how it would do. The thing is, I thought this was a reboot. I wasn't aware that it was a sequel until I looked into it. But, yeah, the last. Okay, so Planet of the Apes, been around for like 50 something years. The most recent trilogy happened in like the 2010s with Rise, Dawn, and War. Those three. And, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, fantastic movie, was a very successful reboot. Then Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was even bigger. War for the Planet of the Apes underperformed, which to this day, I'm still surprised that happened. But it seemed like that would be it until like this was announced. And I was thinking, okay, this movie has no Caesar. He's not in this, obviously, because it takes place like several 100 years after war. So, yeah, no Caesar involved. And he was kind of like the main selling point of the last trilogy. So you don't have him anymore. You have all these new characters. Plus, it's been like 7 years since the last Planet of the Apes movie. So it's a good amount of time has passed since then. And yeah, I wasn't sure if people would still really care about a Planet of the Apes movie, but turns out a decent amount of people still cared because it opened with 58 million, which is actually bigger than War for the Planet of the Apes, as I'm about to show you. See, it opened bigger, ended up making more domestically, which I thought was a little pleasant surprise. Worldwide, it did worse than the other reboot movies, so that's not too great. It wasn't a bomb or anything. It just kind of did mediocre. Like in the States, it did fine. Internationally, it did super mediocre. They made almost like 400 million on a budget of like 160. That's not terrible. That's fine. That's passable. I have no doubt it probably made its money back by now via PVOD and whatnot. But yeah, while this movie wasn't an overwhelming success, it looks golden in comparison to a lot of the other May movies that came out. But yeah, this was the highest grossing movie in May, so it has that going for it. And yeah, so we move right along. I guess we can talk about The Strangers Chapter 1 for a little bit because my expectations for this were like rock bottom because like who wanted this? Who needed this? Who needed three more of these things because there's supposed to be three chapters to this. This is number 1. So I thought for sure no one would watch this thing. But people did watch this thing way more than I expected because it opened like 11.8 million, made like 35 million domestically, 47 million, 47 million worldwide on a budget of 8.5 million. That is rock solid considering it's a low price and considering how bad the reviews were for this thing. And you know what's really sad? What's really depressing? This is Lionsgate's biggest movie this year. I am not making that up. This is it. This is their top performer, which should really tell you just how terrible of a year it's been for Lionsgate. And don't worry, we will talk about Lionsgate a bit more in part 2, okay? Because I have some things to say. But yeah, this was their high for not just summer, but for all of 2024. So have to talk about that. What's next? The Garfield movie. Okay. So the Garfield movie. I thought this movie would do like okay ish. Wasn't expecting anything like crazy. I mean, the last Garfield movie got like theatrically was like almost 20 years ago. We had like the Bill Murray live action movies, well the live action CGI hybrid movies. And the first Garfield movie did all right. Second one not so much, definitely not in the States. Did better internationally. But yeah, with this one I just thought it would do fine. Just fine. And that's what it did. It did quite all right in the States, opened with 24 million, even though it was number 2 over Memorial Day weekend. I argued it was the real winner that weekend. But it ended up being number 1 the following weekend. And being number 1, that's something the Bill Murray movies never got to achieve. So that's 1 point for the Chris Pratt Garfield movie right there. It ended up making 91 million domestically, did way better internationally, made over 255 million on a budget of 60 million. That is rock solid. Nothing negative to say about that. I know people don't like this movie. I didn't see the movie because I just didn't care. But hey, the audience was there. They showed up and it made a nice chunk of change. So yeah, nothing else to really say about it. But yeah, that was it for May. Like that was it. Just it was for the most part extremely negative in tone. And like May 31st, that was rock bottom for summer right there because no wide release came out. Well, no like major release came out, I should say. And that was like the low point for summer. So like at this point, my expectations for summer have dropped dramatically. I was thinking it was all doom and gloom. Like it was just gonna get worse, or it just wasn't gonna improve to a point where I can be optimistic. Well, that changed once we got to June, starting with Bad Boys Ride or Die. So, Bad Boys 4. Now, on paper, okay, well, this thing had like some things going for it and some things going against it. What was the things that had going for it was the fact that the third movie, For Life, was a huge hit when it came out in 2020, in January 2020. It opened very high for a January release. Like, I can show you right here. Opened with over $60 million, which is more or less unheard of for January. The only movie that opened bigger was American Sniper. Ended up making over 200 million in January, which again is like unprecedented. Made over 400 million worldwide, and this is hella impressive considering it was like what, a 17-year gap between Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys for Life. So you think, oh, the audience doesn't care anymore. Like, you think it's like out of sight, out of mind, something like that. But this was definitely a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder. And then obviously Sony, this wasn't going to be the end of Bad Boys. Like, with the money Bad Boys 3 made, they were going to make another one. And they did make another one with Ride or Die. So Ride or Die had the advantage of having a successful predecessor. The thing that was kind of going against it, in theory, was Will Smith, because of what happened in 2022. The whole slap. That whole thing. I don't need to go over that incident again. We all know what happened. Okay. I remember when it happened. I wasn't watching the Oscars live, but I heard like news reports and shit. I was like, whoa, what is going on? And then I saw the footage. I saw Will Smith cursing up a storm, like, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. That whole thing. It was a moment in time. So people were wondering, would that negatively affect this movie? Would people still be cool watching a Will Smith movie after what he did? So that was a big question mark going into Ride or Die. And it turns out people are very much A-okay watching Will Smith on the big screen. Because this movie opened with 56 million, not as much as 3, but considering how old this series is, considering this is the fourth entry, this is remarkable. Very remarkable. And they ended up having really good legs, making 193 million domestically, 400 million worldwide, just like For Life. A fantastic result. Again, this series is quite old, to say the least. It's almost 30 years old, right? Yeah, almost 30 years old. It'll be officially 30 next year. So for this series to be like this consistent with success is commendable. And like, the success of this made me think, okay, maybe summer 2024 has a chance. Maybe 2024 has a chance. Because at this point in time, like January and February were trash. March was pretty good. Then April was trash, and then May was trash. So my expectations were, through the floor. But this movie made me go, okay, maybe summer won't be a total shit show. Right? But then what happened next changed everything. And then some. Inside Out 2, all right. This was the movie that shocked the hell out of me when it came to its box office. Like, the main movie that shocked me. It's not the only one, but this is the main one. Because Inside Out 2, I mean, sure, it was a sequel to Inside Out from 2015. One of the biggest movies of 2015, a highly successful movie, one of Pixar's biggest movies, one of the most acclaimed movies, all that. But when this movie was coming out, like, Pixar was in a bad place, or a real bad place. And it all started like in 2020 when, Onward was supposed to have like a normal release. Then COVID happened and theatrical run, got cut. And then their next 3 movies, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, supposed to be theatrical, But Disney decided, you know what we should do? We gotta prop up Disney Plus. We gotta make it more appealing than it already is. So let's just dump these movies on Disney Plus. Not even doing the whole Disney Premier Access thing where, well, that little experiment, you could like watch the movies for like it was like $30, which I still think is egregious, but $30, and you could have at least done that to get like some money, but they just threw them on the service for free, which is nice for me, but it's not nice for like the bottom line. But yeah, those three movies were all dumped on Disney Plus. But then their first movie after that, the first theatrical movie since 2019 was Lightyear, which funny enough, Lightyear being a spinoff to Toy Story. Their last normal theatrical release before then was Toy Story 4. So it felt like kind of fitting, kind of poetic in a way that Lightyear would come out. And you think Lightyear would be a hit. It's because it's Toy Story, right? No, Lightyear was a catastrophe at the box office. In fact, I will show you just how bad it did. Lightyear opened with 50 million, made 118 million. It was bizarrely front loaded. Made only 218 million worldwide. That is devastating. That is abysmal. I mean, The Good Dinosaur, which at the time was like Pixar's first flop, that did way better than Lightyear. So, yeah, things were just catastrophic with that. And then the next year, you had Elemental, which opening wise did even worse, far worse. 29 million. That's Pixar's like worst opening since the original Toy Story. So I was thinking that was gonna be like a company killer, pretty much. But thanks to word of mouth, it was able to save itself, make 154 million, made almost 500 million worldwide. Not a huge success, not a strong success, but it wasn't the catastrophe a lot of people thought it would be after opening weekend. But still, Pixar, bad place. Okay. So expectations for Inside Out 2 were pretty muted as a result. But then things started to happen. I saw its Thursday previews of 13 million. I was like, that's weird. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, this was bigger than like Dune Part 2. So I was thinking, okay, this is strange. And then Friday happened, 63 million. I'm just like, okay, what the hell is going on? Where is all this demand coming from? And it just kept growing after that. To the point it opened with 154 million. And my jaw was at the floor because 154 million. The only Pixar movie to open bigger than this was The Incredibles 2, which had a good 14 years of hype fueling it. This only had 9 years. And even then, Inside Out, as big of a hit as it was, I didn't think it reached like the same level of like, I guess, classicness as like an Incredibles or Finding Nemo or a Toy Story. I didn't think it reached that level. But I guess it did. I just didn't realize. But yeah, 154 million opening weekend. That shocked the hell out of me. And then things just kept getting crazy. Had a second weekend of $101 million. Yeah, second weekend, 100 mil. That has only happened a few times in history. Okay? I gotta like scroll to find it. 100 mil, 100 mil. Where is it? There's a lot of records in here, if you couldn't tell. Biggest second weekend. That's what I gotta find. Where are you? There we go. Only 6 other movies were able to do that. Force Awakens, Endgame, Infinity War, Black Panther, Jurassic World, and the first Avengers. That is mental. And it just kept on chugging along. It just kept on making the cash. just kept on just going and going and going, just playing throughout pretty much the whole summer. To the point where now it is Pixar's biggest movie of all time, beating Incredibles 2. Yeah, I never would have guessed that in my life that it Inside Out 2 would beat Incredibles 2. It didn't seem possible. It felt like some crazy prediction someone would throw out there just for a laugh, but that's what actually happened here. And worldwide, by far and away the biggest Pixar movie and the biggest animated movie of all time. That includes the Lion King remake, which like it was confusion with that. Like a lot of people kind of put it along with like the other live action with the Disney live action remakes, even though it's technically not. It's all anime. It's just realistic, photorealistic animation. But if you include that, this surpasses that. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind this will be the biggest movie of 2024. I don't see a single release coming near this thing. So yeah, I think its spot at number one is safe. And so the success of this definitely did a lot of things. It definitely defied the narrative that, oh, people don't want to watch Pixar movies anymore. This disproved that. Oh, people don't want to watch Disney movies anymore. This disproved that as well. And it's disproved the fact that, oh, 2024 is doomed. It's over. But this showed that people will go out to see a movie in full force, okay? It just has to be like the right type of movie. And this turned out to be the right type of movie. So congratulations, Inside Out 2. You were the big winner of summer 2024 and the whole year. So congrats. You are number one. So yeah, Inside Out 2, that changed the whole narrative of summer right there. And then we're just going to move along to the end of June. We have another hit in the form of A Quiet Place Day 1. Now with this one, I was convinced it would be a hit because how could it not be a hit? It's A Quiet Place. You know, A Quiet Place started all the way back in like 2018. That first movie, expectations were real. People thought, oh, it'll probably just do okay. It ended up opening with like over 50 million, which is a high number for not just an original movie, but an original horror movie at that. And it made over 300 million worldwide. Obviously, you gotta keep going. So you make Quiet Place Part 2. And even despite Quiet Place 2 dealing with COVID and a whole year-long delay and all that, it still opened very well, still made money. So you gotta keep going. And so here we are with A Quiet Place Day 1, which was a spin-off / prequel. Two things that would normally be a detriment to a movie's box office because you don't have like the same like core characters as like the first two movies. But that didn't matter because Quiet Place Day 1 opened bigger than the first Quiet Place, which was a nice surprise. I mean, it did worse overall. It was more front-loaded. And it did worse worldwide, but the difference between the movies, it's not that bad. Like it retained a majority of the the first two movies, like of the audience. That's like the least you can do. If you can't gross more than the previous movie, you can at least make about the same amount or just retain most of that audience. You do that, you're rock solid. And that's what Quiet Place Day 1 did. And it ended up being, was for now, it is the biggest horror movie of 2024. It was the first horror movie to really like break out this year because this year has been pretty rough for the genre. It's been very underwhelming, to say the least. And this was the first movie to really like shine, to really, not be a embarrassment. So, yeah, Quiet Place Day 1, absolute hit right here. Nothing more to say, really. So that was June. Now we move on to July with Despicable Me 4. Now this was obviously going to be a hit. It's Despicable Me. It's been around for almost 15 years, but every single one of these movies has done great business, both in the States and worldwide. As you can see here from the first movie, then the sequel, then Minions, then Despicable Me 3, then Minions Rise of Gru, all doing fantastic. So with Despicable Me 4, it was a no-brainer. It would make money. And that's what it did. It opened on like a midweek. It made like 75 million for 3 day, 122 million for 5 day. Its legs have been real good. It played throughout the entire summer and has now made 360 million domestically, which is way higher than Despicable Me 3, which I thought was kind of interesting because, Despicable Me 3, it didn't do bad at all. But as you can see, there's a noticeable dip when compared to like Minions and Despicable Me 2, even though it still made a billion worldwide. But domestically, there was a dip. So I thought that was a little concerning. I thought, oh, people aren't really into Despicable Me anymore. People are done with the Minions. Nope. Those little, yellow Tic Tacs that boomers like to use for Facebook memes, they are still relevant to this day. As you can see with Minions Rise of Gru, which is the highest grossing movie of these movies domestically. But Despicable Me 4 is just under it and just over it worldwide. So almost a billion, didn't quite hit a billion, but does that really matter? These movies are real cheap compared to like other animated movies. So obviously Universal got a fat profit out of this movie. And obviously you gotta make more. So Minions 3, summer 2027. Hope you're ready. Because, as much as people like roll their eyes at these movies, they have an audience. They make money, right? Like they're reliable. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Universal are quite happy with how these movies are doing. I imagine movie theaters are very happy with how much money they're getting from these movies. So, yeah, Despicable Me 4, big hit, no surprise there. We move right along to Longlegs, which was like the second biggest surprise of summer, only behind Inside Out 2, in my opinion, because this was not a big movie at all. This was not like a big studio release. This was an independent flick from Neon. Yeah, Neon, whose biggest hit up to that. Oh, I didn't hit the right one. Okay, Neon. The biggest hit up to that point was Parasite, which was a big hit in the States. Well, not really a big hit, but a nice little hit in the States. Even bigger internationally, and it won like Best Picture Oscar and all that back in 2020. But after that, like their track record was real just meh. After that, nothing doing too crazy. So as you can imagine, expectations for this were low, appropriately so. But this movie, apparently, I didn't realize this, but this movie had a killer ad campaign that got a lot of buzz. And that buzz resulted in this movie destroying all expectations. Because I thought this movie would open like 5 million at best. Well, it made 3 million in previews, which I'm like, okay, whoa. All right. Then made 10 million opening day, 22 million opening weekend. And I'm like, damn, this is crazy. What's going on? Like that is a lot for an independent movie. Like that number is bigger than a lot of like studio releases we've had this year. So that was a crazy sight. And his legs have been like real good, especially considering how like divisive the movie was. Like when it came to like the audience reception. Made over 74 million domestically, by far and away Neon's biggest movie domestically. Worldwide, it's still Parasite, but in the States, it's Longlegs. Made over 100 million worldwide. It's the biggest independent movie this year, and like this, like a success like this is what it's what not just summer needs, but what the year needs. You need like surprise little hits to make up for any movie that bombs spectacularly. Like movies like this is what you need. And it helped that, again, this movie had a really, really strong ad campaign that helped it tremendously. And as a result, it became one of the biggest surprise hits of 2024. So, yeah, good job, Longlegs. So we move right along to July 19th, where we have Twisters, the standalone sequel to the 1996 movie. With this, I wasn't sure how it would do. I mean, the original Twister was a huge hit in 1996. But keep in mind, that was 1996, almost 30 years ago. So I was thinking, like, why make this movie? Right? Like, why? Why continue the story of, like, at least in theory, why continue the Twister legacy? Like, why? I mean, it felt like it was just a weird choice. But the way, like, Universal, like, marketed it, they marketed it as, like, this big summer popcorn flick. And what they did in particular that was interesting was that this movie really tried to appeal to like middle America, the portion of America that's kind of neglected when it comes to movies. And so whenever like they get something that's um like speaks to them, that appeals to them, like they eat it up. This happened with American Sniper. This happened with Top Gun Maverick, and it happened again with Twisters. Because I thought, okay, this movie's probably going to open with like 40, 50 mil, open with 81 million, which is crazy for a disaster movie. Like, not even the Roland Emmerich disaster movies, like when they were at their peak, none of them hit the highs of Twisters. So, yeah, 81 million was wild to see. And it's had good legs since, and it's made 267 million domestically, which is quite the number for a movie like this. I never would have guessed this movie would perform as well. But here's where things get weird. It did fantastic in the States, no doubt about that. Internationally, flop. It did not do well outside of America. And the thing is, like Universal, they had distribution rights here. Internationally, it was Warner Brothers. So I don't know what went wrong there. Warner Brothers, they really dropped the ball with the marketing. Although its lackluster performance internationally isn't super surprising. I mean, this is like a movie that takes place in Oklahoma. That doesn't exactly have a lot of international appeal. So it's just one of those things. It's kind of like how, say, a movie that like takes place like in a foreign country would appeal more to that foreign country than it would like here. Or say like if it were a movie about like American football, okay, it would appeal here but have next to no appeal outside of the country. It's like that. It's like a culture thing. So yeah, so domestically great, internationally no. But I guess it's made enough to be a relative success because this movie was kind of expensive, but I guess it made enough to do okay, be fine in the end. So yeah, but domestically, this movie was a smash hit. Definitely what the summer box office needed. And what was rough is that the weekend this came out, like the same weekend last year was Barbenheimer, so it was going to be a drop off year to year. But with Twisters performing the way it did, it could have been much worse. So, yeah. Twisters was a big old hit in the States. But that wasn't the last big hit of July. No, we're saving the best for last. With Deadpool and Wolverine. The movie that I thought for sure would be number one. It wasn't, but it still did goddamn spectacular. So with this, I was always convinced it would be a hit because it's Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, it's Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. You have the two meeting each other properly, okay? I'm not counting X-Men Origins Wolverine. The two meeting each other properly, having a big old team up movie. Like it was, fans have been dreaming about that for ages. So to see that happen on the big screen, of course people are gonna watch it. but there were some issues. Like, this was an MCU movie technically, and as you know, the MCU has not been in a good place ever since, the end of Endgame. you know, with a lot of their movies and shows going more towards quantity than quality. And then last year was especially bad because you had Inside Out, no, not Inside Out, God, Ant-Man 3 flopping out there, pretty much killing, you know, Kang and like the whole multiverse aspect of it. Although that was going to happen like anyway, like with Jonathan Majors being arrested and then being like, he was charged, I think, with I forgot what it was, but in his court case he was charged, and because of that Disney fired him, and then Kang, his whole saga ended, abruptly, and he's basically being replaced with Doctor Doom now. So yeah, but that was even the worst thing for the MCU. The last MCU movie was the Marvels, which I'm about to show you right here. And the Marvels was the biggest failure in the history of MCU movies because it had the worst opening, the worst legs, the worst domestic total, and the worst international total. It managed to beat the record of The Incredible Hulk, the second MCU movie ever, basically the redheaded stepchild of the MCU. It managed to do worse than that, which is insane considering how Captain Marvel made $1 billion. This didn't even make a fifth of that. I mean, I knew there would be a drop off between movies, but I never imagined it would be that extreme, ever. So yeah, Deadpool Wolverine had to deal with the, I guess, how would you describe it? I guess the death spiral. Yeah, the death spiral that was the MCU. But the death spiral didn't do any damage to this movie. It did no such damage because this movie opened with over $211 million. 211 mil. Okay? Gotta like scroll and scroll and scroll. I mean, that is the biggest opening for July. That is the that is the eighth biggest opening of. Oh, that's biggest Sunday. My bad. Yes, the sixth biggest opening of all time, beating the first Avengers movie, which is absolutely hilarious, considering. I think I remember a long time ago, I watched this video about like, it was like some guy, I forgot the channel and all that, but there's a video about wanting like a Deadpool movie because this was like 2013, so this was like a year before the leaked footage happened and the movie actually got greenlit. There's a video being like, oh, there's a part of the video I remember like, oh, Deadpool, it won't it's not gonna make Avengers money or even Spider-Man money, but it could make like Die Hard money, something like that. And here we are, 2024, Deadpool Wolverine overtook the Avengers domestically. Yeah, opening weekend and domestically. Yeah, I think, domestically too. So that is just real funny in my opinion. And that's not all for R-rated movies. This just blew everything out of the water, and the Deadpool movies already blew everything out of the water for what was possible for R-rated movies. As you can see here, Deadpool 2. Look at Deadpool Wolverine. Look how high it is compared to everything else. Like, it's crazy. And its second weekend would still be number 5 for R-rated movies. So, yeah, that shows you how high Deadpool Wolverine, climbed at the box office. How high it went up. And its legs were really good, especially compared to, like, recent MCU movies. I mean, let's go back to the Marvels. I know I'm dogpiling on the Marvels. I know that. But come on, man. Like, the failure of this was extraordinary. I mean, the Marvels fell like 78% week 2. It didn't even double its opening weekend. It just look at that. So to go from the Marvels to Deadpool Wolverine, that is a a complete 180, a 180 to the max. And internationally, opened with it did extremely well there too. Made 1.3 billion worldwide for R-rated movies. Domestically, it's number one. It beat The Passion of the Christ. It finally did it. Marvel Jesus beat actual Jesus at the box office. Like the first Deadpool, it almost got there, but it took two more movies. Finally happened. So yeah, but worldwide, well, actually, I have to find top R worldwide. It beat Joker, which I wasn't super sure it was able to do, but it did it, and by quite a bit too. So Deadpool Wolverine is the undisputed number one movie, number one R-rated movie domestically and worldwide. Just like how Inside Out 2 is the undisputed number one for animation domestically and worldwide. So, yeah, I mean, Deadpool Wolverine, what else can I say? It was the hit Marvel needed desperately. Will it save them in the long term? Probably not. We'll see how their 2025 movies go. We'll see how Captain America Brave New World goes. We'll see how Thunderbolts go before I make like a real judgment call. But yeah, Deadpool Wolverine, like, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And what's real interesting is that you gotta go all the way back. It's real interesting. Like last year was terrible, fucking horrible for Disney because they had a couple hits, Guardians 3, Elemental eventually, but pretty much every other movie they had was a bomb. Like Ant-Man 3, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, Haunted Mansion, Marvel's Wish, they all did awful. So to go from that to this, where you have two movies making over 600 million domestically, combined damn near like about like what $3 billion. That is that it's like it's like we turned back the dial like 2019 when Disney dominated everything. So yeah, so Disney, they went from being like the biggest, from being like the laughing stock, from a total laughing stock last year to dominating everything again this year. So yeah, that is quite something. So and I'm not even mentioning like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, that doing quite well for itself in May. That's not even their own. It's not even their last hit of summer. We'll get to that shortly. But yeah, that was July. July was quite good. Then August was not that good. I mean, Trap did okay. Like for an M Night Shyamalan movie, this was like definitely lower than what he's used to. But I mean, it only cost like 30 mil, I think, and that was like out of Shyamalan's own like money. And it made like 42 million, 82 million. I mean, this is like fine, not amazing, not like all that great, but just fine, just okay. Now, for a movie that actually did really well, It Ends With Us. Okay, It Ends With Us. This kind of like, there's like three main surprises of summer. There was Inside Out 2, Longlegs, and then this. This was number three because I was not aware of how popular, the source material for this was. Like the book, I had no clue how popular it was, especially on TikTok and Book Talk and all that. No clue. So my expectations were like real muted because of that. I thought, oh, this is probably gonna open with like maybe 20 mil. But then expectations started to shoot up, and I was like, whoa, huh? what's going on? And then it opened with $50 million, which is a lot for a movie like this. For a romance movie, for like a drama, to open with that much, that I was like, damn, this is a passionate fan base right here. So yeah, and what's funny is that when this came out, this opened around like the third weekend of Deadpool Wolverine. So you literally had Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively going head to head at the box office, husband and wife going head to head, and it ends with us
beat Deadpool Wolverine opening day, like its first day on Friday. It couldn't maintain that for the rest of the weekend, but actually it won out of like the 7 days. It won 5 of the 7 days. So yeah, that is, I guess that's a feather in Blake Lively's cap that she was able to beat her husband's movie for like 5 of the 7 days of the weekend of the week. My bad. And so domestically, it made like 146 million, over 300 million worldwide. This is despite a lot of drama that was going on with this movie. With the director, an actor, Justin Bologna, apparently being disliked by the whole cast and crew. Blake Lively got shit for how she was like marketing the movie, how she was that. It was a lot of drama, a lot of hoopla, but that didn't hurt its box office in the slightest. So yeah, it ended up being like the biggest movie of August, which I wasn't expecting at all. I really thought it was going to be Alien Romulus. In fact, I wasn't sure if any August movie would hit 100 million, to be honest. August was looking real light, but this obviously defied my expectations. So yeah, it ends with us. Big old hit right here, especially since it cost like what, 25 million. That's fantastic. So yeah, but we're not done. Well, actually, I should talk about the Coraline re-release real quick because this also came out of nowhere. For re-releases, they don't make a whole lot of money. They make like a few $1 million, like max. That's what I've learned, like covering like re-releases that have happened this year. This one was different though. This one, despite being like a 15-year-old movie, a movie that only did like solid but not spectacular back in the day, like when it had its re-release, I have to like scroll and scroll and scroll. Sorry for like the how blurry it is. But yeah, open with like almost like, yeah, almost 10 million. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna scroll again. About like 9 or so million. Like, yeah, but almost 10 million. That surprised me. I was like, okay, good. Oh, sorry, my train of thought was going haywire, but I was like, okay, this is nice. This is good. And it ended up like adding a good over like 30 mil, apparently like 40, although this had like several re-releases like before then. This was like the main one, the one they took like real seriously. But yeah, this added like well over like 30 million to the movie's final total, to its like lifetime total. So now it's hit 116 million. That's more than any stop motion movie ever. Even Nightmare Before Christmas didn't make it this much. So yeah, for someone who loves Coraline, who loves that movie to death, I was really happy to see it succeed like this. I seriously regret not going to see it when, well, I did see it originally, but I didn't get to see the remaster. I didn't get a chance to. I regret that deeply, but yeah, I'm really glad to see it, shine like this. It deserves all the success in the world. So I was really glad to see it, pop off. And then we have Alien Romulus. Okay. So Alien as a franchise, it's been real wonky ever since Aliens with James Cameron. Because, okay. So you have Aliens, both classics, right? From Ridley Scott and James Cameron, both classics. Things went haywire with Alien 3, a movie that had a infamous development cycle that underwhelmed and David Fincher, the director of the movie, he hates it. He straight up hates it. He said no one hates it more than him. They had Alien Resurrection, which honestly I kind of like as kind of like a good bad movie. Did meh too. Then you had the Alien versus Predator movies. The first one did fine, even though it was PG-13, which pissed a lot of fans off. Alien vs Predator was Requiem was a shit show. Did fun box office, but critically disaster. Is the It's the darkest movie of all time because you can't see a goddamn thing. Then you had Prometheus, a movie that, although was the biggest hit in the Alien movies, reception wise, wasn't too good. A lot of people were divided on it. A lot of people straight up hate this thing. I thought it was alright. But yeah, that divisive nature carried on to Alien Covenant, which did way worse, and is a movie I actually don't like. So at this point, people are like, okay, what do you do with Alien? Do you just let it go? Do you let it die? Like, is there like no salvaging it? But the people at Disney was like, you know what? Maybe we can do something with this. So they got Fede Alvarez. They're like, okay, Fede, make a movie. We're giving you the keys. So they got him to do it. And because of that, I was hopeful for this movie because this is a guy who made, Don't Breathe, a movie I like quite a bit. So I'm like, okay, if this is anything like that, then this should be a banger. But so when it was coming out, I saw like trailers and everything. I was like, this could be good, but I don't know. A lot of people weren't too sure about this movie. But when it came out, reviews were very good, and as a result, those reviews definitely fueled its box office because it opened 42 million. Nice increase from Alien Covenant. And what was better is that this didn't evaporate like Alien Covenant. Its legs, well, they're not great at all, but they're like fine enough considering this how old the franchise is. Obviously, this was going to be fan fuel. It's going to be front loading was going to happen. But it ended up making over 100 million domestically. Something that's only happened twice. This is only the second time this has happened. The first time was Prometheus. Ended up making over 300 million worldwide. It popped off in China, which is something that hasn't happened to any American movie in like years. So to see that was quite interesting. Definitely helped this movie. Obviously, helped this movie's final total. So yeah, Alien Romulus. This definitely showed that Alien is still alive and well. It can still draw a crowd. And the thing is, this was supposed to be on Hulu, just like Prey. It was supposed to be on Hulu, but then they decided, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's give it a theatrical release. And I imagine Disney is feeling like real, just like, whew, thank God we didn't make that decision. So, yeah. Alien Romulus. This was the last major hit of the summer right here. And then everything fell apart after that. But it was like only 2 more weeks of summer, so it's not a big deal. Then the rest of August, I mean, The Forge is done all right. It only costs like a few $1,000,000, maybe like 26 million. That's solid enough, even though it's nowhere near as big as say War Room. For its low budget, it's acceptable. Let's just say that. Blink Twice. I'm not sure. I guess this is like borderline a hit. It's not really a flop. It just did okay considering it's like low status. Like it was never meant to be a big hit. Then you got the end of summer, last right here, Labor Day weekend. A whole lot of L's. Where Reagan did the best. So Reagan, I'm not gonna call a hit. Really. Technically it's a flop. But considering the low expectations, this could have been a lot worse. Like it was the only movie that Labor Day to really like pop in some form of fashion. I'll give it a pass because this is from like a distributor who's not super well known, like Showbiz Direct. What have they made? Absolutely nothing. So yeah, that's like a box office wise. I mean, it's technically like a loser, but considering everything around it, I would say it's like a minor victory, a very minor victory. And that was summer, at least like the winning half of summer. So yeah, a lot of positives overall throughout summer. Definitely way more positives than last year, that's for sure. But part 2, we go over to the losing half. All the L's. Most of which came from May. But Yeah, there were quite a few losers. Thankfully, they weren't as catastrophic as last year's. It wasn't as bad, but they were still there. So we'll talk about them in part two, which I'll upload like on Thursday. That's the plan I have. So yeah, that's it for now. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this on the homepage. All the prediction video, not predict, recap videos I made for this year, past few years, all my prior summer recaps. Want to watch any of those? Go right ahead. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. Pretty much every movie I covered here, I made a prediction video for. So if you want to watch any of those videos, you can go right ahead. And all my other prediction videos of the past few years. It's also the canceled series, where the canceled series ended in summer 2014. It was around like late June where I decided enough's enough. I'm done with this series because I was burned out and I just didn't want to make them anymore. So I ended up at 250. Although in hindsight, part of me wishes I could have made 251 to talk about Shrek 5, but that opportunity is long over. But I'm fine ending at 250. I think that's a nice solid number. So if you want to watch any of the 250 episodes of Cancel I've made, go right ahead. Again, stay tuned for part 2, which will be Thursday. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.